introduction. Hi. My name's Ashley, and I am with Sweet Nectar. You guys want to sit down? I kind of caught you. Everyone's like, we're going to go. So yeah, I am Sweet Nectar Shop, and we are a local boutique spa on Lake Michigan Drive, and we offer a curated collection of a wide variety of boutique items. We have a boutique out front and then a spa in the back. And we've started recently doing gift bundles for businesses where we can either ship them directly or hand deliver them, or you can come pick them up and then deliver them at a closing or whatever, wherever you want to. But we can kind of curate based on the demographic and the interest level for whoever the recipient is. And what we do is we really package them in kind of a
Just leave it. Just leave it.
So we can curate it and make it look really cute and well styled for the recipient. These are a couple examples. We can do any price point that you want. So here's an example of a $25 option. Literally, we can do from $25 all the way to $500. I will tell you, we partner with an interior designer, and the interior designer also offers you a special rate for a 1-hour consultation, which can be included in the gift bundle. That would be a $450 value that she offers for $399 for you. So if you wanted to do more of an upscale option, we could do that with other like a diffuser or a candle or matches or something like that in the gift bundle to make it really like a special personalized option. So how it works is you will email and say, hey, we're looking for a gift bundle, $25. Here's information on the recipient and shipped to X address, or I'll pick up at X date. Or you would send an email and say, we're looking for a gift bundle for $150, closing date is X, and we want it delivered to our office, or shipped to X recipient. It's important that you give like one or two lines of information just so we curate something that's relevant for them, right? A candle might not be great for a bachelorette, right? Like we're gonna make sure that it's relevant for who you're gifting it to. I can tell you some examples of what we've seen in the past are, young family, baby on the way, so we can get a cute onesie in there, something else for the toddler maybe, and then something for the home. Or, young couple loves to travel, whatever it may be, or couple looking to retire, and so we'll curate something that's more relevant for them. Always try to make it personalized. Also, one thing to note is that we will personalize it from you. So if you are interested in doing this, what we typically do is we'll keep some of your business cards and branding elements on hand. So when you shoot us over an email and say, hey, I need a gift bundle for X dollar, we'll look it up, we keep it filed, and we'll say, just for sake of, Madison, right? Oh, Madison, here's her business cards. Oftentimes also what clients like to do is they like to write out like a thank you for your business, and we'll keep those on hand. So that way we'll just quickly pull it from our file, wrap it all up for you, and then either ship it to the recipient, and we always respond to your email images of what it looks like, the date it shipped, so you can then follow up and say, I hope you got that gift, whatever it may be. Or if you don't think that you're going to do a lot of these and you just want to do a one-off, then we can stop by and get some of your business cards too. We're happy to come to your location and pick up your branding elements. We're a small business. We love working with small businesses, so we like to keep it small business. And feel free to just let me know. We've hand delivered too. I've hand delivered to, for someone who just recently closed on their home. We hand delivered it to them for them. They told us when they were going to be home, and we did. So we can make it. Honestly, I think we can do that. I don't think it's the best option. I think that shipping is a better option, or what I personally think is probably the best option is coming directly from you at the time of closing, so they obviously remember you and see you. And I have a business degree in advertising and public relations, and so and I've lived in Detroit, Chicago, and Manhattan, and doing advertising for large corporations for Kraft Foods and General Mills. I came back to Grand Rapids and opened a small business, and I would say the core of what we do is help others kind of brand themselves and create memorable experiences, which obviously then is an ongoing word of mouth and advertising. So that is kind of an extension. Now that we have this boutique, we're able to do that in whatever capacity you want us to, honestly. So I'm going to go back to, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
What is the lead time do we need to do the order?
Yeah, so I typically say like 2 weeks is ideal.
Okay.
I hope I'm honest that I've certainly gotten one where we need this done in 2 days or whatever it is. And well, I mean, we can do that, right? So we have everything already in the shop and we're able to pull it. Truthfully, if you said, hey, can I pick this up in 5 hours, we can accommodate it. So now if you all did that, we might be a little crazy. But ideally is 2 weeks, but I understand how life happens and sometimes you're on your way and you're like, I don't have a gift. Call us, give us 5-hour warning and we'll put it up together for you. Yeah. Any other questions before I adjourn? Anyone else? Give you guys an opportunity. Okay. So this would be an example of like a $25 option. So honestly, I don't even know exactly where this would be relevant, but if you just wanted something real simple to directly from you, again, this is branded from us, just to give you an example of how it would look, but this would be your business card on here, these would be your elements, and again, we can include it, we can even put like a card from you that's wrapped around this, so when they open it, it's directly from you. We can really brand it however you want to brand it. If you intend on doing several of these a year, let us know how you want to brand it, right? Like if you want your cards wrapped a certain way, or if you have something in particular, let us know. We'll keep it on file. When you shoot us an email with your order, we'll just look it up and we can curate it however you want it done. Here's an example of a $75 option. Again, this would all be branded for you. This is coffee grounds from a local place in Greenville, South Carolina. They have great kind of branding. If you look them up, they're really well done. The aesthetic's great, and also it's just a local U.S. Organization. Coffee candle, matches, coffee spoon, and a mug. So this would be an example. You could also put even a gift card in there if you wanted to like a local place for dinner, or we can also, if you give us enough heads up, we're happy to we've included like Mad Cat coffee, and we just run over and grab Mad Cat coffee for you. If you want any of those pass through, it's just total pass through for us too. Like I don't mark it up at all, but of course if you're sending me like a lot of these and asking me to run all around town, we'd have to talk about it, but one-offs where you want something, it's fine. And then this would be a $100 one. This would be more of like a bathroom, probably for a woman that's either a first home or even this really could be gender neutral too. We can include some other elements in it that would be more for both genders. I will also say that any of these can include either a gift card that would increase the value of it, or like I said, we partner with an interior designer, and she's offering a special rate just for realtors that want to do these gift bundles. So again, a one-time consultation is typically $4.99. She does it for $3.50, included in this, so you can easily make it, a $500 nice gift bundle. So yeah, and all you would do is say when you submit it to us, you would just say also include the interior design option in here for this. How it works just from a logistics standpoint is we'll respond to you. I respond to all of these. So I will respond specifically to you and say, great, got your order. This is what we're thinking based on your description. Here's your invoice. We send your invoice directly to you. You just pay your invoice, and then we curate it. If you want it shipped, we'll ship it out probably, whenever you want it the next day, or we'll have it ready for pickup. Yeah. What other questions?
What's the best-selling one? What's the best-selling package?
That is honestly, best-selling package. That's really hard because none of them are the same. We don't they're all unique. I will say that kind of young family. We tend to see a lot of young family. I don't know why, but that's kind of where I've seen the most of. But that's not to say none of them are the same. And that's another thing, because again, we're pulling from our boutique, and the merchandise changes. So you honestly, even if you say like, hey, that thing that you did 6 months ago, we want it again, I might not have it again because it just changes all the time. So I would say, I can't really say the best-selling one, but I would say kind of the description of where we specialize. I wouldn't even say specialize, but we see most frequent is probably like young family. Yeah. What other questions?
What would you put in like a government model?
Yeah, so it depends what we've done in the past. And again, if you have anything you're like, I really want this or this, we can probably curate it for that. But we've done like a toddler and a new baby on the way is something we've done in the past, right? So we'll do like a teether and a onesie, and then for the toddler, it was recently around Easter. It was like little bunny, cute little like 2T shirt, and then for like a thing of flowers, champagne. Yeah, is what we did for our. So it was like the whole. We try to really. I think that's what separates us. Is that we try to personalize it, right? We're trying to like understand who you are, and again, this is branded from you. So they feel like, wow, they really understand me. They went above and beyond to curate something. Not that we're trying to be misleading, but it makes it feel like it's directly from you. And as long as you give us those details, we can create that.
Do you have a card?
Yeah. Yes.
Are you gonna stick around a little bit?
Yeah.
All
I'm
right.
happy to stick
Well,
around.
thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Bring over. On my man, Mike. Get our panel to come up.
Okay. Oh, can I actually? There's a giveaway with a gift card in here, and I don't know how Madison's going to do that. But if you order one of these, you can use this for the invoice. You just put this in here.
All right, Ace. You can spread out however you want to.
Did I do it right? Okay.
Make sure you say it by whoever you like best.
Right. Yeah, she did not contact. Did you want to see?
And we're just gonna, I've got some questions for these guys. We were trying to pick out some people that had some dishes, but we got a lot of talent here today. So if you have something to add, feel free to add, because there's a lot of people that got a lot of great things. But these guys were generous enough when I asked them about specific things to step forward. Why don't we start with Jen? I know you're out of time thing, but I don't know if anyone read, or when we do our Agent of the Month, which we do by seniority, so if you haven't been on there yet, you're gonna be. But she had an interesting story about how she got into flipping houses and investing in houses, and then she told me she does 6 to 10 flips a year, which I think in this day and age is really amazing. I feel like there's a real trend with investors that they were all flipping and now they're all holding, and renting back. So to see someone flipping so many is definitely of interest. And I know a lot of agents are interested in getting into investment properties, or they have clients, obviously, that want to get into them. So I was hoping we could take a little ideas from what you're doing. And she does vacation rentals and some traditional rentals. So her and her husband. So why don't you just start with how you got into it?
Okay. My dad was a realtor part-time. He worked at Ford full-time, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. Our weekends were always in the car driving around looking for a repo, and we would get them, and it was our job to help out with whether it was cutting grass or cleaning out all the garbage they left in the garage, or gosh, you name it, helping paint, clean the bathrooms, something we hated as kids, and I always swore that we would never do this, and I don't like this job, this is so boring, and but here we are. My mom always told me to get your real estate license so you have something to fall back on, and it's now nothing I have fallen back on but my primary source of income. So that's kind of how we got started. into it. And then while I was still in college, my parents found a house in Fenville, and they couldn't do it at the time. And so they were like, maybe you can get it. And I'm like, well, I'm in school, I don't know if I can do that. But I was working 3 jobs, and I didn't really have any debt. So by the grace of God, I was able to get pre-approved. And that's kind of how I started. And to anyone that's looking to get into it, I feel like the way that I did it to get started was a very easy way to ease into it, to see if it's something you truly want to do, and to not have the burden of a lot of risk. So to buy a house and live in it 2 years, fix it up those 2 years, learn the ropes, get contractors, figure out what needs to be done, and just see all the hard work that goes into it. Is this something you're going to want to do continually? So with that being said, the house I bought I was probably a lot over my head in it. We bought, it was a 100-year-old farmhouse. The owner was in a concentration camp, and he had gone a little crazy in his elder years there, had boarded himself in the house. Every window and door except the main entrance was glued and screwed shut with wood paneling over it. And then I had somebody come out to do a quote on the roof, and they actually fell through the roof while quoting it. Yeah, I just... Right. So that's kind of how got our way into it, and then 2.5 years later I ended up selling it, and I did very well on it. It was enough to pay off my student loans and to still have money for another house. Probably not a typical flip. Nowadays I think I just kind of lucked out because it had some property with it. But yeah, and that's kind of how I got started.
I have a question for you, sorry.
Yeah.
How did your finances look as you had just purchased this house and it needed so much work? How did you work through that, getting materials and having money to be able to flip it?
Great question. So I had some student loans, so that was, my school was taken care of, and then I was working 3 jobs, 2 waitress jobs, 1 day, 1 night, and then I was working at the Kalamazoo Gazette too. So, so I had some income from that, but I had also had a car that I was paying payments on for a few years, and when the roof came about, I ended up selling that nice car to have the money, and I bought a $600 VW Rabbit. That was an embarrassment to drive, and so the sacrifice I made to have the roof done, and just owning it that long and being able to do little by little. Paint goes a long way. Fencing, it's expensive now, but it wasn't then. To put a little picket fence in. At the time, I was dating my now husband, who was putting himself through school by doing flooring. So he did my flooring for free. I just had to buy the carpet. And I might have had 1 or 2 loans from mom and dad in there, but yeah, there was some sacrifices for sure.
How are you now running your business of flips? Because if I understand, your husband's full-time doing your flips, or
yeah, pretty much. He's still doing flooring.
I guess let me step back. How do you find the house? How do you know it's of value? And for some of this, they might be looking for clients.
Right.
But and then how do you know it's the right one? And then take us through the process a little bit.
Yep. So there's 2 methods of thought from a financial perspective, in my opinion. There's the Dave Ramsey, everything cash, you don't have any debt. And then there's the other philosophy that's more of you have cash flow and you use things money. I guess it just depends what position you're in to do that. Sorry. What was the question? Don't get it started. So finding the house. I was rambling a little. Yeah, so finding the house, you make your most money on the front end, so what you can get it for, which in today's market we all know that can be a little hard. So having connections, just I've done Facebook posts, I've put signs out, like we buy homes for cash, we buy empty houses, you might have seen some of those. I know other people do that too. We might just be driving down the road, there's a house in Howard City I just adore, and about every year I go and knock on that door. I would love to redo that house. What else? If we've had friends who have relatives pass away and they reach out and say, hey, would you guys be interested in this house? They just want a quick close, and of course we jump on it. And then there are asset managers out there and wholesalers, so if you can get in touch with some of those, it's a great way to find a home too. But just know that going into that, they do prefer cash, and they do like that you waive inspections, and sometimes that can be scary because some of those houses are really, really rough.
If you're waiving inspection, is there one thing that you're most concerned about if you guys are walking through that you had trouble with, or it's been a problem, or?
Foundations are the biggest thing in my opinion. Love city houses with the city well and water, or city water and sewer. Well and septic can be another big thing, especially if it gets into an environmental issue because the tank is leaked or whatever. So foundations are a big thing. We have bought ones with bad foundations, and we usually pay the foundation specialist or Hank from City Basement to come in and put in braces or do what they need to do. But those are sometimes a little harder to sell on the back end too, because a lot of people are afraid of those. We do try and stay away from wavy floors. Even though my husband's in flooring, that is the one thing that is a huge nightmare, and he does not want to do that. Wavy floors are a hard sell. We've seen it time and time again, even on our own place up north. That place, we got a steal of a deal on it because no one wanted it because of the floors. And that can be a great expense too. So if you're just getting started or you don't have the funds, I would recommend staying away from those. And that's probably the biggest issue we see. Roofs can be another, but over the years we've found a couple of decent roofers with decent pricing, and that's helped out a lot.
Any common mistakes that you would tell someone to avoid if they want to get into it, or there's a client that wants to do it?
Just really run your comps. Really know your comps. We work our numbers backwards, and we factor worst case scenario. So if there's still money to be made with the worst case scenario, then it's a deal. We're all in. Be careful of. I think the one thing for me is I fall in love with every house, and so it's hard not to do that, and so just I guess try not to do that too much. Of course, you want it to be right and cute, and if you live there, this is what you would want, but sometimes you can get lost in that.
Anyone have a question before we move on for John?
Do you have a minimum percentage of purchase price that you need after your contingency, after your worst case scenario? Like you're not gonna do it if for profit. You're not gonna do it if it's like worst case scenario, I'll still get $1,000 profit. Do you have a percentage, or do you use a flat number, or how do you look at that?
So my husband has a couple of guys that are contractors or subcontractors that kind of stay busy through us. So part of our factor is we don't want to lose those guys. So we will only make 1,000 or 2, and we've only done that on a couple houses just so that they have a job to continue to work. But most flippers, I would say, they want to make a minimum of 20K.
20K.
Yeah. And it depends what you want to put into it. There's some houses we go in and they're pretty bad, and we'll go in and be like, the budget's 25. We'll do this, and this, and we can paint it and put new carpet, but we can't do this and we can't do that. to know where to cut that off, or, you know, and we find that a lot of people who are looking for a house, they don't have the resources and or can't do some of the bigger projects. So those are the things that we try and tackle for people, and then they can do the windows later, or they can do, you know, I don't know, finishing the basement later, or they can put in a new side door later. So we try and tackle some of the bigger things.
Go ahead.
You're buying all of them cash then?
We are. Yeah. But Tom at Team Mortgage, he's got a flip loan that you can do, and he's got something else that you can do too. It's another flip thing. The one is pretty expensive though, but sometimes if you find the house for the right price, you'll still make money, so it still makes sense to do the loan.
How quick are you doing these? So can you not sell them on FHA because of the flipping?
Sometimes, some of them are, I would say 3 months is probably the longest it takes. It just depends what's needed to be done on the home. The other thing with FHA is the double appraisal, and that's burned us a couple of times. So even if we were at the 90-day mark, I really wouldn't want to go that route, especially in this market when we have so many conventional buyers, and I hate to say that, but, and we have sometimes helped people out where we're like, okay, the offer is a little less and they are VA, let's just try and go VA for this person so this that gets a home. So we have done that too. I guess it just depends on the house and where we're at with numbers at the end. And the other thing is keeping track of all of your receipts and everything as you go along, so you always know where you're at.
What's your system for that?
We use an app called Expensify, so we can track our mileage, we can track our receipts, let you take pictures of the receipts, and we can make folders for each home. And then, so my husband can do all that, which is great because sometimes he loses things or it goes to the wash, and then we don't have the receipt, but at least he took the picture of it. And then when I sit down, you know, a month or two later to do the books, I just pull up that folder up of his account and have everything right there.
I guess lastly, before we go on, I guess we should ask about vacation rentals. I think that's a real exciting thing to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Have you done that, or you're doing that?
Yep, so we have one in Irons, Michigan, and we have another one that we haven't filled with furniture yet in the Baldwin area. But those are a great thing. I wish we had more or could do more. For that, we were very choosy on the place that we bought because we wanted it, living in Michigan, we're limited. It's not like you're going to Denver or you're in Florida off the beach or in Orlando. So we wanted like west of 131, where you have trails and you have lakes and you're close to the casino and you're close, like you gotta be close to all the action. And there are some VRBOs or Airbnbs that where people just getting away and it's quiet, and that's good too. But I feel like we have a decent amount of renters during deer hunting and then for snowmobiling. So we have some steady income on that throughout the year, not just the summer. So I guess one mistake we've made with ours, I'll share, we want to move into that house someday, so we've done it pretty nice, and I thought, oh, if we put a hefty price tag on it, we'll get, you know, some nice renters in here, and we don't really have to worry about our place so much. But that's not so true. People don't sometimes care that it's your place, and they bring their dog and when they're not supposed to, or they bring extra people. So my recommendation on that would be, if you did a VRBO, is don't make it too nice, but make it fun. So yeah.
Are your places pretty booked throughout the year then?
Yeah, it's slow. It's slower in the fall and in the winter. But June this year is, and we have some friends that book it too, which is nice, because then you don't have the VRBO fees, which aren't bad. But pretty much the summer is all booked up minus the few weekends we book for ourselves. But we're on the road a lot for baseball, so we're pretty much just renting it out when we can't use it anyways. But it's great. It pays for itself and then some. So it's paying the mortgage, it's paying the insurance. And there are some tricks with that too. Like we learned when we were getting insurance on the place, to say it was a rental. The first quote I think it was like $6,000 for the year, but to say it's a seasonal rental made it $2,000 for the year instead. So as we were going, we were kind of learning some different tricks. And then cleaning ladies, and if you can book offline versus online, that'll save you some money too. I will say the one nice advantage of VRBO is that they do back up the homeowner and they do hold the deposit. So if there is ever an issue or whatever, you're not really the bad guy. They are, and that's been a relief of stress off of me because I stress pretty easily. So, but yeah, and then we have other rentals here too in the area, just for long term. So if you have clients that are looking to maybe keep the house that they're in now and rent it out and then buy another house, if the lender can approve that, I would definitely recommend that. Just screen your people that are moving in really well and take a good deposit. I think the max you can take is a month and a half's deposit. And just we have found being an active and an involved landlord has been actually pretty good on our rentals, even though they're not like nice rentals.
Great. Well, thank you. That was really good. Jen's great at answering questions. How about Ace? Ace is not afraid of a microphone. That's
Because I drink a lot.
I was going to ask you your key to social media, but I think it's because you're always smiling.
I think so. Something like that.
Well, you put a lot of content on social media. How hard is it for you to come up with ideas?
You know, Scott, I Googled because I wanted to make sure I presented you guys with something more tangible and more intelligent. But I figure I'll just share with you guys what I do as myself, right? And so, Scott, you asked me about what content I put out up there. I just put up what I feel I want to do. I mean, as long as I'm being authentic and not being like fake. I mean, that for me is like the best part of being doing social media. You know, it used to be like where social media is an option, but now social media is like really important. You know, you gotta present something out there for people to recognize you, to also see what you have that you're offering, and also something that you are doing for just being out there. So what do I put out there as a social media content? I put up stuff that represents me authentically.
Do you consciously put out a set amount each month?
I used to follow certain criteria that I thought was what Google was telling me to do, or what people have put up there and said, like, this is what you have to do for social media content. And what I found was I was putting a lot more pressure on myself just by following those rules. And I said, I just have to be engaging with people. So in order for people to engage with my posts, I have to be engaging with their posts as well. So it goes both ways, right? I first engage with people before I put up something out there.
Yeah, I see you're good about getting other people in videos with you too, as far as engaging.
I figured if the best way to drive more traffic to my personal page, you know, Google, Facebook's kind of weird because they changed my profile to like a professional page because I have like 4,700 followers that I could change that, and which is cool, right? But being professional page, you could actually like use Facebook to advertise your stuff, and Google loves it because you could pay them advertising fees. And so what I'm just saying is like, I try to put up as much content as possible, but if I'm gonna put up content, I need to make sure that I'm gonna be engaging with that post because I wanted to reach as many people as possible. One of my recent posts was, I think Scott liked it, and it was me in my like loincloth kind of outfit. I know it's kind of weird, but
Sex sells.
It does, Scott. It does. This is like live for our.
We can edit that.
Okay. No, I'm just gonna say like when I started saying like I don't give a shit, like I'm just gonna put up whatever I want to post. That's when it became more fun, right? It became more fun for me, and I think it became more fun for the people who are like watching or seeing what I put up there, because they're like, wow, this is, you're just being you, and I'm just being me, and for me it's just fun. In order for it to equate to real estate, I do have to go back to real estate, right, once in a while. But people do tend to like just random posts. I was just like working out, and I'll post about working out, and people seem to interact with that.
So it seems very fun. How do you turn that into business?
So recently I started this like persona. I call it the manly man real estate. So I posted something about things like I don't want to go to a basement because it's so dark. I'm like, like I will reverse it and say like I let my client go in there first because I'm a manly man, and people seem to gravitate towards that. And I've actually gotten a couple of leads, and I have one listing just off of that post. Just saying like I am just being funny, or I'm just being me. I don't want to go into some scary basement and tell you that I'm a manly man, but people seem to kind of like it that you're just being you. If you're funny, it's good.
And that's you tying in your real estate side indirectly.
I do tie in a lot of posts into real estate, but I also figure out people don't always want to see that work side of you, right? They also want to see like who you are as a person, and I just like to post about my family, about my faith, about what I do as a person, and I've seen people seem to kind of like that. Josh, I know he mentioned something about what I did for my wife
Stolen.
last year.
Stealing it.
So I rented the whole like cinema, like Celebration Cinema, and I surprised my wife with showing of our wedding anniversary video. And I did it on a day that's like really random, and I posted on social media. People seem to like that. People love it when you're sharing about your family, about your just stuff in just positive general stuff.
Well, I don't even know how to follow that question up.
What's one thing that you see other people can do to, like something simple to help their following or increase their...
How do the introverted do it?
Yeah.
So she was asking me like, what do people see or what we can do to just kind of help them improve their social media, right? I would say just being consistent, right? You gotta be consistent with your posts. You gotta be consistent about who you are. Because I used to like follow people and I used to copy them. I thought that would be the best way, because I'm like, man, they're successful. I gotta copy what they do as posts. But really, people don't really, they would like it in the beginning, but they don't really care. They care about who you are as a person. So if you can post about who you are, Jen, and just talking about like all those things that you just mentioned today, I mean, for me, that's like great social media content. Just little bits and pieces and saying like, hey, this is what I bought today, and I don't like it because of this. Like I wanna follow because of those things.
Share the negative.
Share the negative, because negative seems to make you more like a person.
How much time a week are you spending on this?
I used to spend a lot, but I did get so busy with my business. But I really need to spend more, because the engagement, it really does drive my business. I believe it drives my business to where I get more clientele for buyers and also positive listing appointments. So if you're asking me like how much I need to spend, how much time I need to spend, I need to spend a lot more time, Scott. I need more people on my team, but it's only me for now.
Great. Anybody else have any questions for Ace? It all sounds easy.
It's hard when you have to follow, when you Google like how to be like successful on social media. It's hard because you have to follow certain criteria, analytics, but what if you just like put it away, right? And just say like, I'm just gonna post things that I like. And people engage in that way, then people will get to know who I am. People get to know who I am and what my job really is. And and I think that will be so much easier than following some analytics, some criteria, or like when people tell you like what you're supposed to do, you just be who you are.
And if anybody doesn't know, ACE started the Asian Pacific Festival, which is a huge event downtown. If you haven't been there, it's how many years in, and
it's going to be 7 years from now. I do want to tell you, we also started the Noodle Fest, and we started as a social media kind of post, but like we had 7,000 people show at our Noodle Fest this year. So what does that really entail? Just getting people involved into like what you're doing, right? What you're doing, is it positive? Is it going to not even change people's lives, but is it going to affect their lives? And is it going to communicate like, hey, we just want to build community? So I feel like when you do that, it creates some sense of, I want to help this person. I was talking to Scott about like maybe we could do sumo wrestling again. In 2018, we brought in sumo wrestlers in Grand Rapids in my organization. So
Why aren't we doing this?
you just had to tell Madison it's done.
no, but it was cool because we hired, we rented out like JW Marriott, the banquet hall. We had 3 real sumo wrestlers from Japan just come out and do sumo wrestling with some of our regular folks in West Michigan. It would be kind of cool to have Scott, like, hang out.
There we go. I think I'm good at that.
If I can put one of those big suits on, I'll do it.
You don't have to lose weight for that one. And so, yeah, if anyone's interested, not this Friday, next Friday is the festival. From 4 to 5, we're having a little VIP party down there. Let Madison and I know if you're coming. It's going to be a fun little thing for now.
I think I
It's a
will.
great festival. Great to see you.
My wife's Asian.
Ace might be bartending in his loincloth. He's not too busy. All right, Pam's up. You got time?
Okay.
You got it? I think, all right, thanks, Jen.
Thought it was going to 3 days.
Yeah, we got long. Thanks. We'll make this quick, Pam.
Okay.
Rob, you gotta go too, is that fun? We'll wind
I'm
it
gonna
up.
leave before she's done, but no, it's okay.
Okay.
I'll be really super quick.
Pam, we're doing, Pam, if everybody doesn't know, is a great party planner. If you ever want suggestions, she goes above and beyond. And so,
And I love planning.
Yes.
so I guess that, I think customer appreciation parties, we all think we should do. I think very few of us do. I can honestly say in 20 years I've never done one, so I'm guilty. But how do you come up with an idea, and how do you make it happen?
So typically, before in the fourth quarter of the prior year, sit down and try to figure out what 4 events we want to do. We always plan, and I always plan with other agents. So it's not just me. It would be, say, Sandra and I and Kate did a zoo one year, and Kate and I have done plenty of events together. And so we sit down and we figure out what we want to do. We try to do one each quarter. We try to make sure we have one that's an adult only. So maybe like 1 year we did, we rented out 2 theaters at Studio Park, and we had Batman, and it was only adult only. Then we also done the zoo that year, and where it was kid friendly, family friendly. And then in the fall of it, this was last year, the fall of last year, we did a huge, one big farm event where so a fall farm event, we had a band, we had catered food, we had a professional photographer, we had crafts for the kids, we had gifts for the every family member to take home, a mum and pumpkins, we had pumpkin painting, face painting. They were able to pet the animals, just a lot of fun stuff. And then of course the band. And one thing that we did with that one, which worked out really great, was the touch after the event, was that with the photographer, we had family photos taken for each family that attended. And then after the event, instead of having the photographer send them the photos, we sent them to each one of our clients. The reason we like to do the events together, 1, expense, helps with each other. 2, it brings more people in, so your event looks more successful. I will say in the spring, we kind of had an event fail, but it wasn't a fail, it just wasn't as great as our past events, which was Earth Day. And the weather just didn't turn out. It was early spring. It was cold that day. We had it at Richmond Park. We probably had, we had about 100 that RSVP'd, but I'm gonna guess we probably had 60 maybe show up. Whereas our fall event, we had about 325. It was a great event. Scott asked me, do we do a touch with each event afterwards? No, I should have. I didn't think about that. I know the fall event we did, but the movie theater, no, we didn't do that. The zoo, we didn't do that, did we, Sandra? We didn't do any touch like after the fact. And I don't care if not all my clients attend, because it's still a touch. If they don't want to attend, they don't want to attend.
I gotta guess the values in the invite.
The value's in the invite, yeah, because we're hearing from you. So we, so like the zoo event, one thing to keep our expense down, because you always have fallout. So we had 100 and something people RSVP for the zoo. I think we had over 100 attend. But what we bought was any day tickets, so that we could give those away as closing presents afterwards. So it wasn't just that day ticket. It cost us $1 or $2 more per ticket, but in the long run, we end up saving money that way. So we, and then of course we just have little giveaways and things like that.
When people show up, are you trying to connect with all of them, or
Yeah.
just guide them in the right way?
Yeah, so we're using either QR codes when they come in, and we make them all sign in, either with the QR code or whatever. Whoever's hosting the event with all of us, and we're standing there, we're talking to each and every family that's they go through. And then of course, just continuing, just talking to them and interacting with them.
Can you track any direct sales or?
Yeah, I got the fall event. I actually received 2 leads off from it from prior clients that thanked me and then gave me 2 leads, and I had one closing, and I'm still working with one that hadn't found a house. But so yes, so we can track those by knowing when they sign in and kind of go from there. I am doing a little different event this year in August. Instead of, because we actually ask our referral partners, our lenders, title companies, for money, yeah, sponsorships too.
Title companies love giving money.
Yeah.
I've heard of that.
But this year I am actually doing a Whitecaps event where I've rented out a suite, but I'm inviting my referral partners to that event to thank them for
Wow, that's a
for
great
that.
idea.
So I thought, and how the lenders that did business with me last year, title company people, the inspection companies, etc.
That's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
Remind them.
Yeah.
Because we're always going to their events, instead of treating them back.
Yeah, so I just wanted to treat them for, 1, putting up with me, and 2, it's just nice, and let them know I'm still here.
No, I think that's your charm. You're always going the extra mile figuring something out to stay in front of your clients. Did anyone, I'm keeping you on time.
Yeah,
Did
thanks.
anybody else have any questions before we let Pam run out of here?
One thing I would just say is when you want money from banks, ask in November and December instead of last minute, because that's when we're doing the budgets.
Right.
So
Madison,
often
write that down.
We always get asked, but it's always when the money's gone. So if you plan in advance, you're more likely to get.
We've also done like the Christmas open houses and things like that, and that was also very successful, and they appreciate it. And yet we see a lot of the same clients coming back, but then some of our new clients, but they enjoy it, and they're always very appreciative. And of course, we do a lot of social media posts afterwards. For invites, we actually, depending on the event, we mail an invite, we text them, we email them, and we call them. So, we are like on them 4 different ways for each event. So, not always mailing a card. We did that for the Christmas one, but the rest of them is typically just email, text, and personal phone calls. And then keep doing that up until your number count has to be there.
Who wants to team up with Pam for our next event. you got a lot of takers if you need anyone to team up with your next event, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, there's a few coming up, so I'll let you know.
And last question,
Yeah.
are these all major big events, or do you do smaller events, or?
Starting to do some smaller events. Some of the smaller events we're looking at right now is just trying to put together. It's really kind of looking at some smaller ones. Maybe do some wine tasting with people, clients that you know that like wine, whatever. Try to do a little bit more intimate events as well. Just haven't got to that point yet, but that is on the radar.
Well, thank you. Hey, Rob.
I just want to say I started doing client events maybe 5 years ago, and I was always kind of nervous about doing it. I figured I wouldn't remember clients' names on the spot, and I just look over the list a couple times before, and that's usually enough to jog my memory. My lender was like, "How do you remember everyone's names?" I'm like, "I'll know it for about the next 15 minutes, and after they leave, I won't. It'll go back out of my head." But I just studied a little bit. And they're great. I think it's a great reason to contact a client. I don't like to contact them just for the sake of, "Hey, how you doing? Do you have any business for me?" It's much nicer to call them up and say, "Hey, I've got something for you. We got a pumpkin patch event, free donuts, bring the kids. Pumpkins are on us. We limit that, but so they don't walk out with a cart full of them." But yeah, I think 100%. I would say everything that Pam says is great. She does a lot more than I do. She sounds like you do a really good job. So.
Yeah, and I know that's gonna be where you're coming.
Now that I know that translation is just handing out cash, like,
and Mercantile Bank.
I never, and Merc, okay.
In November.
I do right now. My lender and me split this. He brings in half the list. I bring in half the list of a RESPA compliant or whatever. But yeah, that's helpful. But yeah, I'm gonna have to. Josh and Mari, we're gonna have to talk a little bit. But, no, actually. What's nice is the farm we go to only charges us for the people that show. So we get wristbands and they charge us. They know what number we left off on and what number we end up on, and then how many donuts trays we go through and how many cider gallons we go through. So I did movie theaters before, but you have to overbook because 20, 30, 40% of people don't show, but you're always nervous because if 100% show, they're going to show up and you're going to say, "I don't have a seat for you," which wouldn't be very. Yes, that's it. But yeah, a lot of people don't show to any of these things, so you can't. But the farm events, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter at all, especially if you're only paying per person that shows.
Well, good stuff. So your topic here, working with new build, is of particular interest to me because I've been one with clients. I'm guilty of persuading them not to go with new build. I like to get paid quicker. And it's a long, detailed process. But as we cannot find inventory, I think it's a great option. So in the process, I know you've worked with builders a lot. How do they suggest it? Do you suggest a builder, or how does that process work?
So for my new buyer clients, I try to bring up, if they're a lead, I've got an email that goes out to every new lead from whatever source, if it's Zillow or one of the other referral sources I have, people that I don't know, they get an automatic background about me, and in that background it says I have a subspecialty in new construction. I want them to know right off the bat, like, I know something about construction. If you don't bring that up, they'll often end up, you guys have all had this happen, where you're working with a client and next thing you know, they're at a builder's open house, they've had a lot of conversations, the builder's already started doing stuff with them, and then you call the builder and they're like, "Yeah, I have no desire to pay you anything. I met your client, they never mentioned you." So I try to be upfront about that and let them know and bring it up right away, especially if, it doesn't work too well if your client's 200K or 300K or 400K, maybe even 500K. Somewhere around there you can go, okay, 500 plus, we can start talking about the potential of builds, and I want to make sure I put that out there. And then if they come back and go, "Oh, I didn't know you need a realtor for that," or anything like that, I want them to know right away. A lot of people think that, and here's some of the reasons why you might want someone like that on me. And I have a few quick examples I go over with them. And then right away I say, it's okay if you go to an Eastbrook open house or JTB Homes or whatever, but do me one favor, if they are happy to pay me, I'm not sure that's true, but I say that. They are happy. They're happy to pay me, but make sure you mention me right up front. Don't. It's okay to go to the open house. Don't start signing paperwork, anything without me. But tell them the minute you walk in there, hey, I'm here to look. I just want you to know I have a buyer's agent named Rob Young. Now I've been working with a lot of builders long enough. They know who I am. It's really nice when they go, oh, we know Rob. He's a great guy. Love working with him. Then your client's like, well, this is all perfect. But I've had it in the past where that's not the case. I waited too long, and it's much harder. The builders really, really hate when they feel like you're squeezing yourself in long after the relationship's been established. I don't know if that was the question, but that was my answer.
I think that's great advice. I think in 20 years I've never prepped a buyer saying, especially in that price point, and I've lost a few to builders, saying I can help you through that process. I think that right there is powerful.
Yeah. I mean, one of the best things I've ever done long ago, especially with new leads, is if it's a referral, I'll usually have a conversation with them and I'll bring it up then. But new leads I'll call, text, and email, and that email is going to have that as one of my bullet points, as one of my specialties. And I've had several people right from there going, that's perfect. I was thinking new construction. Let's have a conversation. But some of your clients are thinking about existing homes, and then there's no inventory, right? So then we got to start looking at builds.
Yeah. So I guess there's two ways. Our clients come and went through an open house and they're going with one of the bigger builders. Are you working with the smaller builders very often, or is it mainly the Eastbrooks, those type of?
I do more of the bigger builders. I mean, quite frankly, they control more of the builds. I'm probably close 15 plus with Eastbrook, and then JTB and Harder and Warner, what are they called? Something like that. Some of the others. And to some extent, it's a lot easier to work with those companies. They've got a lot more process. I'm doing a custom right now, and the problem with that is you never know what you're going to get. Like structure-wise, I'm not trying to rip on them at all. There's no structure at all. I'm like, can you send me what your process is, what the steps are? And I got like 2 sentences back. Well, first of all, review, then you guys can check that out, see if it's okay, and we'll go from there. That was his process. And he's got, his wife's a designer. That's fine. I mean, there's some small builders. I understand it, but I'm trying to figure out the process and how I can help my client in that. Whereas when you're working with Eastbrook and some of the other companies, there's a lot of process. They're going to tell you how it works, where the designers come in, and all those things. But I do work with small builders. Those are usually going to be higher end builds, 800,000 plus usually, unless I'm on the outskirts or something like that. But I really enjoy, I know I've had a lot of people that say they don't, but I really enjoy working with companies like Eastbrook, as long as you treat them well and you don't, I think it's natural sometimes for an agent, as a new agent, to try to be the hero and be like, I'm gonna really take on this builder for you, and I'm gonna be the tough guy for you. You can do that. If you ever want to work with them again, you're going to want to be careful about how you approach that. And that's a lesson I've learned over time. I was a lot more getting in the builder's way early on. Part of it was because I didn't know what was going on, and I wanted to make sure my clients were protected. Some of these companies I have a lot of faith in, like in Eastbrook. It doesn't mean they're perfect, but they're going to finish up with a good home. They'll usually stand behind their product. If things go wrong, they'll usually take care of it. But yeah, again, I'm rambling, but I don't know if that goes.
No, it's good stuff. How do you stay involved during the process, or don't you? Because I think a lot of the builders, like you're saying, are just saying, okay, you brought the buyer, get out of the way. We don't really care to see the realtor.
Yeah. No, that's what they want. That's not what I do. As a matter of fact, I just got a certification, and I forget what it's even called. It's some new home buyer, some new home realtor certification that's national. I see the big companies here subscribe to this company, and so I'm like, I'll just see if I'll learn anything from getting the certification. And the whole, no, not one bit. I don't think I learned one thing the entire certification. And really, the certification with the class was, he sounded like some good old boy from down south, and he was just like, stay out of the way of the builder. bring them and then leave, you know, and it was kind of like, that's not what I do, but that's kind of what he's like, what the builders want. So what I've learned is, because I think I started to develop a reputation early on that Rob's kind of a pain in the ass, he's in all the details. I had to get some calls from higher up sometimes like, man, you need to back down a little bit. So I started to gain more trust for these companies to some extent, but I started to learn like, okay, a couple things. Have your client be the primary contact. Outside of early on establishing that you're involved, have the client be the primary contact. If something's going wrong, you can coach your client on an email to the builder, and you can review it, and you can go through it, then let your client send it to the builder. Because for the builder, your customer is their client. You are not their client, right? And a lot of times their assumption is that you know nothing and that you're getting in the way of things. I'll even tell my clients sometimes, look, they're not doing things the right way. Do not tell the builder I told you that. But this is not the proper way for it to get done. You need to let them know that you don't find this situation acceptable. And if we need a reference, we can call an inspector. And if we need a reference that we spoke to an inspector, or sometimes I'll tell my clients to call the local home, like municipal home inspector, and say, is this okay? And then the client themselves can say, I made the call to the township, and the township says this isn't acceptable. And that way, as the agent, I'm still helping them, but I'm not the bad guy. I didn't create an enemy with the builder. But in terms of staying involved with the process, for the most part, I'm on the early side. So I want to be involved with their design plans, like in terms of the layout of the home and helping them think about resale and what is probably important. I've learned over the years what kind of things people have regret about not doing. So for instance, I often have people insulate the master bedroom with insulation to deaden sound. There's a lot of reasons why people want to be able to sleep and not hear things, so that's a great upgrade that people don't think about. If you have a main floor ranch with a master on the main floor right next to the living room and the TV is on the opposite side of that wall, your clients will be very happy that you insulated that wall for them, right? And that's not a standard practice. I have them insulate the laundry room if it's on the main floor or second floor. Who wants to be hearing, they're trying to listen to TV and all they can hear is the washing machine going, right? Builders often have, I think the standard is usually a 22-foot depth garage. That gets really tight. I remember, my numbers are going to be off though, but let's say within Eastbrook to extend the 2 feet was about $800. And then that's just a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. They will appreciate that space. And by the way, these are the examples I bring up early on with clients, and they go, holy crap, I need you. I would have never, people never think about the garage. They just assume the cars are going to fit in there just fine. And then they pull out their truck, and they're like, the nose is touching the drywall, and the hitch is scraping the back door. Okay, and for a very cheap amount, you can extend that garage a couple feet in depth. And I got a hold, so over the years, I've just built up a list of these things. A lot of builders do not vent the micro hoods. I mean, yeah, it's like they'll charge you an extra like $150 or $200 to exhaust it, right? If you go through specs, I'll go through a spec and I'll show my client, right? So if they want to see my knowledge, I'll go through the spec and I'll go, watch this. I'll hit the vent, I'll put my hand above it, and it's like, do you see how it's blowing air right here? So this way, the smell is evenly distributed through the whole home. And I'm like, they saved $150 here by not venting it out. And don't make the assumption that just because there's a steel hood, that it's vented out. I found this too. At the top of the steel hood in a lot of these homes, you will see a grill like on the side of the steel hood. And you've got a big steel hood, and it's still just venting right back into the home. Eastbrook, after some time, said if we're going to install an actual hood and not a micro hood, it's an automatic now for them to put the venting in. But not for a micro hood, and for a lot of builders, not even for, they could have a beautiful wood hood, and it could recirculate into the home, which is just absolutely ridiculous. So these are all lessons. I knew nothing the very first time I sat in a build, and luckily the builder's agent was a really nice guy. It was Jeff Costello, if any of you ever dealt with him. He was a super nice guy. Although now he picks on me, like, just constantly. My clients, after I'm done with him, are like, does he even like you at all? And I'm like, I don't know, actually. I'm not sure. But the first time I did a deal with him, he was very nice to me.
And and in that build, I knew nothing. So here I am, pretending like I knew something about this and trying to do my best. But you go through builds and you start learning things as you go. You start hearing what your clients wish they could have had. And now I bring those things to them up front. You got to be a little careful with that, because what you don't want to do is, if a client has a $500,000 budget, you can't make every cool suggestion to them. They'll never afford it all. And then you start making them feel bad, because it's like, geez, there's so much you've brought, they were ignorant before about it, right? And ignorance is bliss sometimes. So based on their budget, I'll kind of go, okay, here's probably the most important things that they might miss. But if they have a huge budget, I had one guy that took every single suggestion I ever made and put them all in. I'm like, dude, I just meant to do some of them. He's like, oh no, and he put all of them. It was crazy. And I'm like, wow, that's great. So again, I'm rambling, but hopefully that answered whatever your question was.
No, that was a really good answer, and I think you're adding tremendous value, because I think as a realtor, it's hard for us to sell to people, where our value is and why builders.
I think the most common thing is like, why do I need you, right? And like, I can work directly with the builder, and I'll remind them, that person, if it's a salesman, they represent the builder, not you. And if it's a builder, whose best interest do you think they have in mind here? That's not to say builders are bad people, but a lot of them want to get done with the home and go on to the next. And some of these things that I'm suggesting are kind of a pain in the ass. They have to spend a little bit more time quoting it, doing it, and the builder would just assume, in many of these cases, just move on to the next home. But once you bring these things up to the client, they start understanding really quick where your value is. I actually tell people that I have more to offer on new construction than anything else I do. I can shorten the learning curve and bring more value to them on new construction than I can on a resale and on a purchase of an existing home, because the variables are just so much more. There's so much more that can go wrong on new construction than there is in an existing home. The layout's known, the features are known, right? That's already there. You can't change that stuff at that point. But on new construction, the way that they really end up appreciating the property and how it functions for them can change dramatically based on things that you recommend to them.
I guess last question I have, what do you prepare people? I mean, they always say people are going to be this much overage as you're adding stuff. Do you prepare your clients you're going to go with this much over whatever the spec sheet says you're at?
Yeah, it's a really tricky question. Like on the custom I'm working on right now, the builder gave us a very, very basic outline of what's included. Now we saw one of their specs, and their spec level is going to be much different than an Eastbrook like base level. Like no one really builds like Eastbrook JTB. Generally speaking, you don't ever build their base plan, and that's intentional. Eastbrook isn't trying to get people to build their base plan. They're just saying you allocate the money to where it's important to you. If you want granite, if you want quartz, spend the money. We're not going to just put that in the base, because you might not want to spend the money there. A lot of the custom builders, by the time you're talking about $700,000-800,000, a hard surface countertop is probably already built into their price. Maybe a few built-ins, higher level carpeting, flooring, maybe a tile master, that already might be built in. So depending on who you're working with, I often tell, like these big builders, I'll often tell my clients, depending on where you're at with budget, and if this is going to be a 5-year home, or is this going to be like your lifelong 30, 40-year home? If it's going to be a lifelong home and you've got some budget to work with, I expect to go from anywhere from 40% over base price to 100% over base price. Which it sounds crazy, right? But it goes very, very quick. And I'd say 40 to 50% over base price is pretty normal for clients that want a reasonably upgraded home with a big builder. Certainly at least 30%. If they're doing 15 or 20%, then they're going very, very basic. Now on a custom home with a higher end builder, an awful lot of that stuff may already be included. And so their base price may not need nearly as much. But you'll develop, the things that people can't, you want to hit the things that they can't do later, like electrical and lighting are one of the big ones that you can't really easily go back. Maybe you guys have a spot where you wish you had an outlet in your house, or a few more lights. or a floodlight in the backyard, or you want to put in a hot tub but your basement's finished and there's no electrical panel on the back of the home, so you're either going to have to dig it out and trench it all the way to the back, or you're going to have to open up the ceiling. And those are things I ask ahead of time. You're ever going to do a pool, or are you ever going to do a hot tub? And let's make sure we have that stuff ready now than much later. And if we're going to do that though, then we got to be, none of that's in the builder's base price. Now, as far as you asked me before about process, so I'm in on that side, and then as soon as they start picking out colors and curtains, I'm out. That's it. You don't want me doing that. That would be bad. And then I'll check in. I'll get your question. But I'll check in now and then. I'll check in now and then, and I want to be on the builder's updates. So I'm like, a lot of times they'll just take you off at some point. You won't see anything. Stay in on the updates. Try to get out to the house now and then to look at it. I always walk through at pre-drywall. There's that time where you're going to look to make sure, is there anything we need to do before we shut these walls and insulate the home? All the electrical's in, all the plumbing's in, and at that point, you want to check it over really closely and make sure the outlet locations are good. You don't see any issues there before they close up the home. And always have your clients inspect the home. Most of the builders are like, why are you inspecting? It's brand new. You should see the shit I found in my inspection reports. And even good builders have bad weeks or bad months. During COVID, a couple of them, things were just crazy. I had where shingles were not placed on the roof and water was just going right through, luckily into the soffits and not into the home. I had it where half the insulation that was supposed to be in the attic wasn't there. And those are with a good reputable builder. They can't keep their eye on every contractor at all moments. So most of your inspections are going to come out clean, but I always tell my people, have it inspected. And most of the builders are pretty good at whatever we do find, we hand them that list, and the builder goes, okay, I'll take this as the punch list and we'll work it out. I'm sorry, you have a question.
So I am at the start of a new build with some clients, and I've asked, like, what do you need from me? And they're like, we're good. And I told them to keep me updated. They're just starting to do like the design right now, with floor plan and everything. How would you suggest like making sure that you're involved?
At
To
some
the builder,
point,
just to make sure, like, because I told them.
who's
like,
the builder that might help?
Steve Visser,
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of Steve. I don't know him well.
Brandon Visser.
Yeah.
Son is who we're working with.
Okay. So a good point to be involved in terms of helping them is once they get some type of draft plan. Now, I don't know if it was did the builder already have a plan, or they totally customized it with an architect?
No, they've had a plan. They looked at one. I think they were going to change a few things
Change
in
a
it,
few
but
things, yeah.
nothing like custom.
So at some point, what I want to do is sit down without the builder, with the plan, and not final plan. I want some kind of draft plan. A lot of times they'll ask for the build. A lot of the builders have draft plans, unless it's a very custom and your client is doing, like, bringing in their own architect. But that's fine, then the architect needs to send me the plan. And I want to sit down with them, and before I ever do, I'm going to review the plan and take a bunch of notes on it. And I'm going to say, do you see how this door knocks into that door? You might want a pocket door there. Do you see how this light in this room is going to have absolutely crap lighting? We're going to want a few more recessed lights here. I can look at the electrical plan and go, here's where, some outlets in your soffits are going to be really handy for both Christmas time, and these days I have all my cameras, $35 cameras, but I don't want them on battery, right? So I just check them up in my soffits, and I've got camera views all inside my house, which I just caught some people egging in our neighborhood with those. But if you sit down with that plan, that's where you can go, oh, hey, look, your garage is only 22 feet deep. I don't know if you know that, but if you're in a garage now, measure it. Like, expanding it out a couple more feet, you're going to be able to get a refrigerator in there now. You're going to be able to store a lot more stuff, and you're not going to feel like that car is just slammed up against the wall. So you're going to want to go through, and then here's something stupid. You look at the builder's plan, and you need to know which windows are stationary and which ones actually open. A lot of times, decorative windows on the fronts of houses don't open. You'll see bathrooms, and there's no window you can open. And like for $150, the builder can just upgrade it to a crank-out window or something else. So and again, it's hard to know all this in your first time, but you kind of want to build this list over time, and then you bring that to them at that meeting, and then they can go, And if they don't want those things, that's fine. I just want them to be aware. And usually they're absolutely thrilled. How about this one? The driveway. Like a lot of the builders, you see how there'll be a 3-stall driveway, and one will be like this harsh angle back down, and you have this. Do any of you have one of those?
I do.
You can barely get the hell in the driveway.
I didn't have a good realtor on mine.
And at that point too, like your snowplow guy is gonna rip the hell out of the edge every time, right? And I just tell people, either go take the lines straight down on both sides. It's like an extra $200 in concrete, right? Maybe a little bit more than that. Or at least soften the angle. I even have people expand their walkway. You go up to a lot of these homes, and the walkway going up to them is like you can barely fit yourself on it. And like expand that walkway like a foot, and the home is going to have a much more nice status looking with a slightly larger walkway up to the home. A bunch of minor things like that. But as soon as you start bringing this out, would you guys believe, or tell me if you think I'm full of shit, bringing up some of these things to people that go, I didn't think of most of this.
I will say that's so true. We just did some renovations at our house, and that, like, I wish, like, we didn't know these things, and the money's been spent, it's been done. Now it's frustrating as heck. Like, it's like, okay, now we just have to live with this. Like, we wanted to make it better, and there's just certain things that we would never would have known, like an electrical outlet. Why not put them, if you're redoing it, put them everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, it's just functionality. Like, you don't think about it because you got used to functioning in it before, but I wish I would have known that.
I have a lot of my neighbors that when they come to my house, they go, geez, I didn't even know you could do that. I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know you could do that. Because it was not really that builder's salesman's job to try to slow down the process and go, let me bring every possible potential change to you. They don't want to do that.
Better. They don't say, let me make your life easier.
It makes it complicated for them, and they, up until recently, were absolutely slammed. And I'm not ripping on them. Their job isn't to look out for the buyer, though. It's to just keep moving on with the next one. And I've learned a lot of things from salesmen, a lot of good ones that I've worked with that were nice enough to make suggestions, like you might want to think about this. So I've gotten a lot of ideas from them, but usually they're not doing it nearly as thoroughly as I. But I'll sit down and have one good meeting with them with the plan. And I've had that meeting 3 or 4 hours sometimes. We're going through every room, every light fixture,
Going
everything.
through with the client or the builder?
The client. And then I want from them, remember, I want the client to direct everything with the builder. I want the builder to think I have as little part of this as possible. When you got these ideas from your uncle or your aunt or your cousin, I'm, you know.
Lance, do you have a
Yeah,
question?
I want to know how you're getting paid on these. Is there a compensation agreement?
Yeah, I mean, I try to get my standard buyer agency agreement that all my clients sign, and usually I do that at the time of the offer, but sometimes I'll do it earlier depending on the situation, has both new construction and existing. Even clients that say they're buying existing, we write on existing. Remember that paragraph you have to describe in the West Michigan Regional PA, you have to describe. So it covers new construction, existing construction, and lot sales. I want to make sure they're under contract before I've entered a contract with that builder. The bigger builders are going to pay you. They're just not going to argue with you as long as you registered them and you're not really late to the game. If you're really late to the game, you might be out of it. So that's why you want to educate your clients and make sure you mention my name right away, get their contact info. If it's a bigger builder, I'm making the introduction, and most of them, you might want to be careful, but most of them are not trying to steal the client. I'll just make it clear, like, what are you paying right now? I'm going to bring the client. And depending on what they tell me, a lot of builders are not paying 3, a lot of them are paying something less than that. And for my sake, I'll just decide whether it's sufficient or not. And if it's not, I'll tell them that either they or the buyer are going to pay me the difference. But I don't run into that many arguments about it. I think it's harder when it's off-market, spec home. Your client went to the open house, and all of a sudden you're trying to come in and help. Then it's going to be more difficult. But if your client's under contract, and again, the big builders generally don't want to make a bad name for themselves. But as you've probably seen, I won't mention names of the companies. Some of the big builders have already reduced from what was a more typical commission to a little bit less nowadays than they used to pay.
Wow, this is, oh, go ahead, Joe.
This is like totally my own situation, so I'm just curious. But so I bought a new build last year, and we were involved in it, but it was already being built when we found it. I've sold other homes in the neighborhood that were already being built, so this home is the first one that is from scratch. Like we looked at one of their other houses in the neighborhood, and they decided that they wanted to build on a different lot. So after they talked about all the other lots that were available, I was in the first meeting with the builder, and then they decided on the lot and they put their deposit down. Do you find that most builders have a contract for you to sign, or like, I don't really know, like, because I've been
A lot of
involved
times
in it,
it's mentioned in the contract, the compensation that like I would always want my compensation to be written in the build contract.
Okay.
And remember, always write it from the you're not a party to the contract. So you have to write it as something to the effect of the builder is going to pay the buyer agency's broker's representation fee of X%. You have to, you can't write it as the wording matters. Let's say.
Yeah.
Now, if it's a builder I trust and I don't particularly like the wording, I don't give a hoot about it. But if it's a builder I don't know at all, then I'm going to pay a little bit more attention how it's written. And by the way, be really careful about the contracts. For instance, you got to even be worried that if your people buy the land and the builder is going to build on their lot, who's insuring it? Because what you don't want is the builder's contractor to have an accident and then your client to be responsible for that, right? So it's one of those things, I'll look through it, but I'm not an attorney. I'll often tell my client if it's not a contract that I'm used to or have seen before, I'm often like, you should probably have your attorney take a peek at this. There's a lot of potential pitfalls, especially with the smaller builders, even to the point where your people are taking out a loan, right? What happens if the builder starts dragging their feet? Your people are making interest payments on the draws. Well, what happens instead of 8 months, it goes a year and a half? By the way, my sister had one that was supposed to take less than a year and went 3 years in Illinois. They're financing and making payments and all that, but they had no penalty provision in the contract. So I like to see if the builder says 8 months, I'll go, okay, I'll give you 10, and after 10, if my client is financing, if the builder's financing, I don't care. The builder's motivated to close, but if my client's financing it, and it's not a big builder that almost always closes roughly on time, then I'm gonna say, hey, we need some kind of $300 or $400 a day penalty to make sure you're not dragging your feet. Even changes of ownership and whatnot. You'll see a builder all of a sudden sell it to another builder, and now your people are like, holy cow. So I have a provision in contracts that if it's going to change from, if they're going to give up ownership or the person dies, that my client now has the ability to back out of the deal. Now they might have to pay for everything that was done up to that point, but they might be able to choose the next builder that finishes the rest of the build. I mean, it sounds awful, but if you do enough deals, someone's going to die, right? I hate to say it. And if it happens to your build, what happens? If you're on an $800,000 build and the lead person dies during the contract, if there's no provision stating it, one other thing I would say too is what's really good is set proper expectations for your clients. This is the biggest thing. The builders can't stand it. Try to make the builder look good. That's what I try to do. I try to set the expectations so the builder is going to look good. I try to tell them all the potential pitfalls. When something goes wrong, don't go calling your construction manager at 9 o'clock at night. Be calm the next morning and have unless it's an absolute emergency, right? Tell them that mistakes happen on every build. You guys have been part of builds. I've never been part of a build where everything went perfect, ever. So it's just like, hey, stuff's gonna go wrong. Be ready for that, but we'll address it and try to just set the proper expectations. You guys are a build family, so you guys know this well, right?
Yeah, we don't work with realtors though. 3-bedroom small ranches, so not a lot of detail. Right, Mark?
Our sister and brother-in-law, I hope you work with him, they'll love you. He's an engineer, they'll love working with you.
Well, that's great. Yeah, this is such next level stuff. I guess last thing, and we'll wrap it up, because everybody, we allowed 2.5 hot dogs and brats for everybody, so make sure you're eating your fair share.
How many drinks?
I think you're unlimited at this point. We got till 5 o'clock and then we gotta get out of here. Well, usually a lot of builders want us to write on their purchase agreement, not our standard for our purchase agreement. Are you finding that? Do you have any problems with that?
Yeah, did I shut it up? No, it's still going. Most builds are done on a builder contract. And you know, some of the big builders use the same one over and over again, and I generally am okay with it. I'm putting a lot of trust in those companies based on reputation, that the fact they've been around for years and years and have relatively good reviews online, even if the contract, one of the major companies in town, I used to go back and make changes to it, and you know, a company doing a few hundred builds a year, and eventually after a few builds they said, no more, the contract is what it is, Rob, you can't change anything other than, you know, fill in the blanks. And actually, usually they fill out all the blanks and hand it to me, right? But the custom builders, and that's where it gets a little tricky. Yeah, I mean, I had one recently where I really didn't like much about the builder at all, between process and everything else, but they have a great lot. And I just warned my client, like, you'll probably get a decent house when we're done. It's a leap of faith to an extent here. And it's much easier to take that leap when the builder has an existing reputation and they've been around for a while. When they've been around for 2 years and this is their first development, I don't know. So I'll just warn my clients what the pitfalls are, and I'll say this contract, like, if things go wrong, it's all, they wrote it, it's in their favor, they have control of everything. Like, a lot of times it's like, if we run out of a product, we can substitute some reasonable product of our own liking. I'm like, I don't know, that's a lot of power for them, right? Like, you might get some floor that, and they might go, well, that's roughly the same color, but you might hate it. So you just have to, I just look at those and explain it to people and say, here's the potential pitfalls. Are you willing to take the risk? It's probably going to be okay. If you're not willing to take the risk, we can try to have an attorney write some changes to it and send it back to them. And I have done that on several occasions. And most of the times, by the way, except for the big builders, the builder has accepted it. I try not to be unreasonable about it. If you swing it too far into the buyer's direction, they're going to go, yeah, I don't want this client. But if you put a few, like I said, with the penalty provision, I go, okay, you're telling me you're going to have this done in 10 months. Why don't we give you a 2-month buffer? Crap can happen, right? 2 additional months on top of the deadline you set, and after that, we'll set a $400 a day penalty. So that's kind of, or whatever, something to that effect, so that there is a stick at the end of it if they can't get things moving. You will not get the big builders to do that, though. They're gonna just go, we'll move on to the next person.
Since you know about like contracts, legality, like we always kind of really give each other for your knowledge on it. So like the exclusive buyers representation, that agreement, can't you do one kind of that would protect you almost partly, like if it was a new build? Like, can you do your own type of form that says like you will be included, or will like a new build or a builder not honor it?
No, I do. I have that, but the builder you're not obligating the builder to pay you. You're only obligating your client to pay you.
True.
And your client's gonna be very upset if you haven't clarified with them, like, oh, the builder refused to pay me, now you need to pay me my X% commission. But that is how I protect myself to some extent walking into these things.
Yeah.
Most of it, though, I try to prove my value to the client enough where they go, I don't even want to build if you're not involved.
Well, great stuff. I'm glad you didn't have time to prepare.
Thanks, Rob.
Great job. Everybody
Bye-bye, see ya.
If you park in the street during a certain time of the year, you'll get a ticket at like things like that. Where I'm like,
They were all very good. And then, yeah, Rob's always like some Jen's.
Jen's very cool. We've had like that. I mean,
Yeah,
this
it's
like
amazing.
renovation. I know like personality wise too. I mean, we're almost done, but I just wish there were certain things that we knew too, because we already spent money on everything we looked up. You know, gosh, like I should have said, you know, and it's almost like we knew better, but it was the company, they should have been buying
Right.
us a little more.
They have someone point out all that stuff.
Like, can't park in our garage. Truck won't fit in. It's too low. You know, like, so his truck doesn't. Now I got a gator. Drive a gator up the truck and the pole barn. So it's just.
That's a gator.
People would be mad. Certain people, he's okay with like.
Oh boy, that could have been bad.
Yeah.
It's locked in there, Lance.